Welcome to Sleepy Scientist. I'm Christopher. Tonight we drift into wonder together. Where in the world are you watching from? And what time is it where you are? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear where our quiet community is falling asleep tonight.
Chapter 1. The Garden That Knows the Time. You close your eyes, and in the hush that follows, you find yourself stepping into a garden that hums with a sound you cannot hear. A rhythm too deep, too slow for any human instrument. The soil beneath your feet is warm from the sun's memory. The air carries the scent of green things that know how to wait. You pause there, not as a visitor, but as someone returning, as though some part of you already understands that this is a place where time does not march. It breathes. All around you, the leaves seem to tilt toward the sky as if listening. Petals unfurl not with a rush, but with the patience of someone who has never known urgency. Even the vines that twist quietly along the wooden fence do so with a confidence rooted in something older than minutes or hours. You begin to notice. This garden keeps time, but not in the way your body is used to. There are no ticking clocks here, no schedules or alarms, and yet everything happens on time. A sunflower turns its golden face toward the morning light, precisely when the first soft rays brush across the earth. Not early, not late. The closing of a tulip at twilight is not hesitation. It is choreography. Somewhere deep inside each stem and leaf and root there is a knowing, a timing, a calendar made not of numbers but of light. You walk deeper into the garden and the sunlight filters through the trees in delicate strands, painting shadows on the ground like veins of time itself. A breeze stirs, lifting the edges of leaves that seem to nod in agreement. This is not just a place. It's a living clock, made not of gears and wires, but of light and breath and memory. You kneel beside a patch of moss and press your fingers to the cool green. How does it know when to grow? How does a daisy know when to bloom? Not because someone tells it, not because a bell rings, but because it feels the turn of the earth, the quiet lengthening of days, the deep language of warmth and dark and return. Plants, you learn, are timekeepers of the ancient kind. They sense dawn before you see it. They know night before it arrives. Their roots feel the rhythm of rainfall. Their leaves taste the flavour of seasons. They do not need to rush. They trust what they know. Every cell in their being listens for signals, messages that come not through words, but through light and temperature and the long hum of the planet spinning. Even in the absence of sunlight, they continue to move in cycles. Scientists once placed plants in total darkness, cut off from the sun, and waited. What they saw was astonishing. The plants still moved, their leaves still shifted, their flowers still opened and closed, as if they carried the sun inside them, as if memory was written into their skin. This quiet cycle is called a circadian rhythm, a biological clock that keeps ticking even when all the external cues are gone. It is inside you too, this clock, a rhythm so subtle you often forget it's there. Your body also listens to light, to temperature, to time. It tells you when to sleep, when to wake, when to eat, when to dream. But unlike the plants, you often override it, with blue light, with schedules, with urgency. Still, the rhythm remains, soft and persistent, like a tide beneath your thoughts. You sit now at the base of a tree, its bark rough against your back, and feel its stillness. But even stillness has motion. Inside the tree, water is rising, not with haste, but with certainty. Nutrients flow, responding to the light, to the season, to the whisper of roots far below. And the tree grows, not every moment, but every day, in imperceptible increments, trusting that time will carry it upward. This garden does not resist time, it accepts it, moves with it, feels no shame for slowness, and you, sitting here, begin to feel your own rhythm softening. Your breath aligns with the breeze, your heartbeat slows to match the sway of branches. You're no longer watching time, you're inside it. Nearby, a vine stretches toward a trellis. You watch its tip tremble gently, reaching for something unseen. It doesn't worry whether it will make it. It just grows, slowly but steadily. That is its only task. That is its purpose. To follow the path of light no matter how long it takes. In the far corner of the garden, you notice a small cluster of evening primrose. At this hour, they begin to stir. Their blossoms open only in twilight, as if they prefer the gentleness of fading light. Their timing is precise. Some open within minutes of sunset, triggered by a shift in the air that you cannot feel, but they can. Their opening is not random. It is a promise. And still, no clocks, no voices, only the deep intelligence of rhythm. Your thoughts begin to blur, to soften. You wonder now how much of your own time is borrowed from devices, from schedules, from expectations that run faster than your own nature. What if you, like the garden, remembered how to move slowly? What if you too turned toward the sun, not to measure it, but to be warmed by it? A small insect lands on your knee, a beetle with a green shell that glints in the remaining light. Even it, you suspect, is guided by something deeper than decision. Circadian rhythms guide animals too. The migration of birds, the nightly songs of crickets, the way bees time their dances, all tuned to the world's subtle beat. This garden, you realise, is not a place you have entered. It is a language you are remembering, a memory in your own cells. You once knew this way of being. You once woke with the sun, not an alarm. You once fell asleep with the stars, not the screen. You once bloomed when the season invited it, not when the calendar commanded it. Now, as dusk deepens and the last of the golden light disappears, the plants do not panic. They do not wish for more day. They fold their petals, close their leaves, and rest. Because they trust that morning will come again. And maybe you can too. You lie back now on the soft earth. The sky above you fades from blue to violet, then to something deeper, darker, gentler. Crickets begin their soft chorus. Somewhere far off, the breeze carries the perfume of jasmine beginning to open, timed, as always, to perfection. Time here is not measured, it is lived, felt, remembered. You close your eyes, you listen to the stillness, and in that stillness something ancient stirs, a rhythm you once belonged to and still do. And as sleep begins to gather around you like fog on the hills, you feel one final question rise like a petal from the soil of your mind. If plants keep time through light, what secrets do they learn from it? Chapter 2. Light is the language of leaves. You wake into the garden again, not with movement, but with presence. The sky above is pale with the colour of early day, and already the world is stirring. But not in a rush, not in the way cities wake, with alarms and clatter. Here, everything begins in light, soft, golden, and slow. A single beam pushes through the canopy and lands on the velvet face of a nearby leaf. And the leaf responds, not with sound, not with motion your eyes can easily catch, but with a shift, a tilt, a silent opening. You see now that this garden does not only grow in soil, it listens in light. Light, though weightless and quiet, carries language. It travels across space in the form of photons, tiny packets of energy that touch everything they meet. To your skin, light brings warmth. To your eyes, it brings colour and clarity. But to a leaf, it brings instruction. Sunlight to a leaf is not just fuel. It is a whisper from the sky, saying, "Now is the time." You walk a little farther. Around you, the garden unfolds in tender layers of green. Some plants have turned slightly east, their leaves reaching toward the new sun. Others still rest in shadow, waiting their moment. There is no panic here, no race for the light, because each leaf knows its role in the day's unfolding, and this knowing begins with light. Within each leaf are structures so small you would never see them, chloroplasts, little emerald libraries of energy and memory. These chloroplasts capture sunlight, just as a page captures ink. The process is called photosynthesis, but you do not need to say the word to feel its wonder. Imagine it like this. Light arrives. The leaf drinks it. And in return, the leaf breathes out sugar and oxygen, the quiet beginning of life for so many others. You sit beside a fern now. Its fronds are soft, almost feathery. But what they're doing is no small thing. As the morning light grows stronger, the fern begins its work. Light hits the cells, electrons leap, and within that leap, energy is created. A tiny spark passed through a chain of reactions so ancient it once sustained forests before humans ever stood upright. Every green thing you see is reading light, translating it into life. But not all light is equal. The garden reads colours the way you read tones in a voice. Blue light is clear and full of command. It tells the plant it is morning, time to grow, time to open. Red light speaks in warmth, guiding blooming, helping seeds to sprout. And darkness, too, is part of the language. In the absence of light, new instructions arrive. Close your petals, rest, conserve. It is all part of the same conversation. You notice now how the leaves shift throughout the day. Some face upward in the morning, catching the sun at its first angle. By noon, they adjust, flattening to avoid too much heat. By evening, they turn again, seeking the last kindness of fading light. This is not chance. It is choreography, a dialogue. Photoreceptors in each leaf act like tiny eyes, sensing not just brightness, but duration, direction, and change. And each signal they receive is passed inward, deep into the plant's inner language, where action follows message. A vine curls upward along a post nearby. You reach out to touch it gently, and in its softness you sense something strong, a determination not based on will, but on listening. The vine does not guess where the light is. It knows, it follows, it bends slowly, steadily, always toward the place where the light speaks most clearly. Even flowers, delicate as they are, respond with elegance to the script of light. A sunflower, for instance, will track the sun across the sky, not because it sees, but because it feels. Its cells grow more on one side than the other in response to light, nudging the head to follow the arc. In this, it becomes not just a reader of light, but a dancer with it. And then there are those who rise when the light fades. Evening primroses, moonflowers, they bloom under stars, listening to the quiet colours of dusk. These flowers do not reject the sun, they simply follow a different rhythm. They have learned to speak with the dimmer voices of the world. As you walk, you begin to feel this language in your own skin. Light on your face is no longer just brightness. It is timing. It tells your body when to be alert, when to rest, when to dream. Just like the plants, you have photoreceptors. In your eyes, yes, but also deep in your brain. They guide your sleep, your hunger, your mood. You and the leaves are not so different. You pause now by a tree, tall, quiet, and ancient. Its leaves shimmer in the growing sunlight, each one decoding the morning in silence. And you wonder, if light is language, then what stories has this tree been told across the years? What dawns did it greet with joy? What storms did it sense approaching in the colour of the clouds? What lullabies of twilight did its leaves hum in response? Scientists have discovered that leaves don't just respond to light, they anticipate it. In experiments, when artificial lights mimic day and night, plants begin to react before the lights even change. They predict dawn, they prepare for sunset. This internal rhythm, the circadian clock, runs even without cues, as if the memory of the sun is stitched into their being, and perhaps into yours as well. You lie back now in a patch of wild grass, the blades tickling your arms. Overhead, the sky is brighter than before. Birds sing. A butterfly flits past, its wings catching the light like stained glass. You close your eyes, and still, the light presses gently through your eyelids, warming you, wrapping you. You can almost feel the message it carries. You think of how every green thing here has read this same message and responded in its own way. A leaf doesn't need to speak to understand. It simply listens. And maybe that is what you're learning here too, that understanding begins in stillness, in sensing, in noticing the shift from shadow to light and responding with grace. And now you imagine something strange and beautiful. What if plants could not just read the light, but also store its wisdom? What if every flicker, every shade, every season's glow left a trace within them, not just energy but memory? As you wonder this, a soft breeze moves through the garden. The leaves shimmer again, and it feels for a moment like they're whispering something back, as if they remember, as if the light told them stories and they still carry the echo. You rise slowly, the warmth of the sun now fully surrounding you. The plants continue their work, not hurried, not delayed. They read the light as they always have, and you, watching, begin to understand that this is not just science, it is poetry in practice, a partnership between the sky and the soil, written one beam at a time. You take a step toward the edge of the garden. The light shifts slightly, cooler now, and the shadows lengthen. Still the plants remain, turning softly, always attentive, always decoding. They do not forget what the light teaches. Even as darkness falls, they remember, and you wonder, quietly, if leaves can read the language of light, might they also dream when night begins to fall? Chapter 3. The hidden clocks inside green cells. You rest beneath a tree and let your gaze wander upward. The leaves shimmer softly in the golden light. You think of them as motionless, quiet, just part of the scenery. Yet inside each one is a gentle intelligence, a sense of when to open, when to close, when to wait, and when to grow. You've already learned how plants read light, like language written across the sky. But now we step deeper, not into the sun above, but into the green world within. A world where time is not measured by clocks, but kept by memory inside each cell. This is not a time you wear on your wrist or hang on your wall. This is internal time, biological time. The quiet, patient rhythm of life that unfolds even in the dark. You imagine shrinking down, smaller than the smallest dust, until you pass through the surface of a leaf. Here, inside the green ocean of the cell, chloroplasts float like tiny islands, each one catching sunlight and turning it into life. But these chloroplasts do not just work. They know when to work. And how do they know? Because within them, and all around them, tick unseen clocks, not with hands or numbers, but with pulses of protein, with shifting shapes, with whispers of chemistry that speak in hours. These are circadian rhythms, internal cycles that last roughly 24 hours. The name comes from Latin, circadian, meaning about a day. They are the plant's heartbeat of time, shaped by evolution to match the turning of the earth. Even in total darkness, a plant can remember the time. It does not see a sun, but it knows that the sun once rose, and it keeps waiting for it, like an old memory that continues to echo. In your mind's eye, you float through a single cell, gliding between the soft edges of organelles. There, nestled near the centre, are proteins that rise and fall like tides. Some grow in concentration during the day, others peak in the night. They are not random, they are synchronized, ordered, precise, a ballet choreographed over billions of years. One set of proteins signals morning, another signals dusk. And between them, the plant decides when to photosynthesize, when to conserve, when to bloom. You pause beside one of these timekeeping proteins. It has a strange shape, like a ribbon curled in just the right way. You watch as it binds to another molecule, triggering a cascade, a soft domino of effects that changes what the plant does next. Some of these cascades affect genes, turning them on or off depending on the hour. Others shift how sugars are used, or how water is drawn from the roots. This tiny invisible machinery is the plant's way of knowing now. It does not think in words, it does not glance at a clock, but it knows. What's most miraculous is that these clocks do not run alone. They speak to one another, like a choir of rhythms, each voice slightly different, yet all in harmony. The clocks in the leaves match those in the roots. The rhythms in the flower petals match those in the seeds. Even cells in total darkness, say, buried in the soil, carry a memory of time past. The signal from the surface, from leaves exposed to sun, ripples downward. Messages are passed, proteins are shared, and deep in the earth, a root may begin its stretch because somewhere far above, a leaf has sensed morning. You breathe slowly, imagining this network, this unseen green conversation. All across the plant, each cell pulses with its own little clock, but they are not isolated. They listen, they respond. A single leaf does not wake up alone, it wakes up with the plant. Scientists have studied these rhythms by placing plants in total darkness. Even without light, the leaves still open and close, rise and fall. Not perfectly, but close. They remember, they anticipate. A sunflower may still try to follow the absent sun. A seedling will still rise at what it believes is dawn. But over time, If disconnected from all cues, the rhythm begins to drift. It is a reminder that while these clocks are internal, they still listen to the world. Like musicians playing from memory, they perform the rhythm, but they tune to the light. Inside you too, a similar clock ticks. In your brain's deepest folds, the suprachiasmatic nucleus keeps time. In your cells, rhythms echo, guiding sleep, hunger, healing. You too have a rhythm built not only by daylight, but by memory. And as you lie here, you begin to feel that your body and the plant beside you are not so different. You both rise with the light. You both rest in the dark. You both hold time in your cells, passed down through generations. Return now to the chloroplast, that green miracle inside each leaf. It is not just a factory, not just a sun catcher. It listens to the rhythms of the whole cell. When the clock says morning, it prepares its machinery. It aligns the enzymes, it draws in water, it sharpens its focus. And when dusk arrives, it winds down, stores the sugars, calms the energy, rests. But the clock does more than help the plant survive a day. It prepares for tomorrow. It learns. If light arrives earlier than usual for many days in a row, the rhythm shifts slightly. If clouds hide the sun, the plant remembers yesterday's pattern and adapts. These are not conscious decisions, but cellular intelligence, a memory woven into molecules. And this memory protects. A plant that keeps time well can anticipate drought. It can open its pores only when needed, losing less water. It can flower at just the right moment when pollinators arrive. It can conserve during the long night and burst forth when the light returns. All from a rhythm that began in silence, in the hidden clockwork of green cells.
There's a tree outside your window that wakes before you do. Its leaves begin to turn ever so slightly before the sun appears. It knows what's coming, and each day it prepares, not with worry or rush, but with trust in the pattern. It follows its clock, and in doing so, it becomes part of a world larger than itself. A world that turns, rises, and sets in perfect rhythm. You lie still and feel this rhythm now, not just in plants, but in the very earth itself. The tilt of the planet, the spinning of the globe, the rise of tides, the stretch of shadows, the deep breath of seasons. Your body, like the plants, is stitched into this greater movement. You are not separate from time, you are within it. And as your thoughts grow quiet, you remember that all of this, the proteins, the light, the rhythm, continues whether noticed or not. Plants do not rush. They do not forget. They simply move with time, listening always to the whisper of the sun. You begin to sense the beauty in this quiet listening, the grace in obeying a rhythm older than clocks, older than calendars, a rhythm that lives in green cells, and maybe in your heart too. And yet, even as time is kept within each cell, there is another kind of rhythm that moves through a plant. Not daily, but moment to moment. A kind of listening, a way of sensing touch, wind, sound. In the next chapter, we lean in to hear how plants feel. Chapter 4, Roots that Sleep and Wake. You close your eyes and imagine moving downward, past the rustling leaves, past the bark and the branching limbs, down through the trunk and into the damp, listening earth. The light fades as you descend. The noise quiets. There is no wind here, no flutter of wings, only stillness. And yet, there is life. So much life. Hidden, waiting, moving slowly through the dark. This is the realm of roots, and it is not asleep. Not entirely. You have walked among trees, watched their leaves shimmer in the sun. But you've rarely thought of what lies beneath your feet. Beneath every trunk, there is a vast, unlit world, a mirror to the branches above. Roots spread and fork like rivers, twisting and turning through soil. They seek water, anchor life, and form silent networks that outstretch the canopy. They move so slowly, their motion is invisible to your eyes. But still, they move. Still, they feel. And still, they know. What they know most of all is time. Even in darkness, roots remember the day. Not because they see it, but because they are told. The leaves above, basking in sunlight, send messages down. Messages of sugars, of hormones, of water. These are more than just nutrients. They are signals. They are whispers of when to rise and when to rest. Imagine now a stream of sugar flowing from the leaves, made by photosynthesis, born of light. It drips down through the phloem like honey, pooling in the roots. But it doesn't drip constantly, it pulses. The flow is guided by the plant's circadian rhythm, the same internal clock you've seen in green cells above. When day breaks, sugars flow more freely. When night comes, the stream slows, and the roots, in response, begin to slow as well. This is how roots know that morning has come, even in total darkness. They feel the change in rhythm, the quiet increase of flow, the shift in chemical songs. These messages tell the roots it is time to stretch, to take in more water, to prepare for another day. And when the leaves wind down, the roots do too, conserving energy, waiting patiently through the night. Inside the root tips are cells that divide, cells that push downward, cells that explore the underground world like slow, dreaming fingers. But they don't do this randomly. Their growth is guided by signals from the surface. Light signals turned chemical, transformed and translated for a language the roots can hear. You see now how the whole plant is one body, with no part alone. The leaves may seem to lead, but the roots are never out of step. Even in the absence of light, they respond to it. Even in the absence of motion, they move in time. And this rhythm, this sleeping and waking, continues whether seen or not. There is a special hormone called auxin, and it acts like a conductor of this underground symphony. Produced mostly in the shoot, it travels downward to the roots, directing growth, telling cells when to divide and where to bend. Auxin helps roots respond not just to time, but to gravity, always guiding them down, always encouraging that faithful stretch toward deeper earth. But it is not the only messenger. Cytokinins rise from the roots, meeting auxin halfway. Signals from below, shaping the growth of shoots and leaves. It's a conversation, not a command. The roots speak too, and in this way, the plant becomes a dialogue of signals, top to bottom, bottom to top, always in quiet rhythm. Roots also rest. Just like leaves that close or flowers that fold, roots slow their activity during certain times of day. Enzymes pause, cell division softens. This rest is not idle. It is restorative. It prepares the root for the next push, the next stretch. In some species, root growth is higher during night. In others, during day. It depends on their evolutionary rhythm, on what has served their survival best. You imagine this now, a hidden world beneath your feet, pulsing gently, slowly, with the rhythm of rest and activity. Roots that wake without sunlight, roots that sleep without dreams. A silent ballet of sensing, stretching, listening. But roots do not just listen to the plant. They also listen to the soil. They sense moisture, heat, chemicals, pressure. They grow toward water. They avoid toxins. They navigate around stones. Some roots form partnerships with fungi, vast underground webs called mycorrhizae, that help them find nutrients in return for sugars. These fungal networks, too, follow rhythms. They sleep, they wake, they pulse with the same inner time. In forest soil, this becomes something astonishing. A network of roots and fungi connecting not just one plant, but many. An old tree may share sugars with a sapling through these links. A dying tree may transfer resources to others before it falls. This is called the wood wide web, a poetic phrase for an invisible exchange. And yes, this network, too, follows the day. The flow of sugars increases in morning. The conversations grow louder, and as dusk falls, the messages slow. Roots may not see the stars, but they feel the turning of the earth. You begin to realize how little of a plant's life is visible. So much happens beneath, in soil, in darkness, in time. The roots may never see the sun, but they depend on it just the same. And in return, the leaves depend on the roots. Without them, there would be no water, no minerals, no anchor. A tree without roots is not a tree at all. So here you are, lying still, imagining what moves beneath you. Perhaps outside your home, a plant is resting now, its roots still and quiet, waiting for the next pulse of light above. Perhaps the garden beside you holds secrets, soft ones, of sleeping roots and waking soil. You cannot hear them, but they are there. You feel comfort in this hidden harmony, in knowing that life continues whether watched or not, that every green thing, above and below, moves in time. That rest is part of growth. That darkness holds its own form of life. You may think of sleep as stillness, but here, beneath the soil, you see that even sleep has a shape. Even sleep listens, even sleep prepares. The leaves catch light, but the roots hold memory. The leaves stretch upward, but the roots pull inward, and together they make the plant whole. Together they sleep. Together they wake. You remain quiet for a moment as if to honor this underground world. There is something sacred about it, something slow and ancient, something that reminds you that not all life needs to be seen to be understood, that there is intelligence in silence, and meaning in dark. And now, just as plants sense the world through roots and leaves, there is another kind of perception they carry. One not of light or gravity, but of touch. In the next chapter, we lean into the question, how do plants feel the world around them, without nerves, without a brain? Chapter 5. When Flowers Know to Open. You lie still in the early morning hush, before the birds begin their songs, before the hum of the world resumes. The air is soft and cool, and in that pause, before the sun fully rises, something stirs. Out in the garden, a flower begins to open. Its petals, once folded like gentle hands in sleep, now part slowly, as if stretching awake. There is no sound, no clock, no instruction shouted from the sky. Yet it knows. Now is the time. How does a flower know when to bloom? How does it measure the invisible hours and minutes that guide this delicate dance? Some open only in morning, others at night. Some bloom for one day, others for many. Yet all of them seem to follow a kind of choreography, as if each petal were a dancer waiting for the right cue. You begin to understand that flowers don't just open, they wake. And this waking is not random. It is written into their very cells, composed by rhythms older than memory. A flower's opening is a result of a deep conversation between light, genes, and time. A conversation that takes place in silence, but leaves a visible trace. A bloom, a color, a fragrance drifting softly through the air.
Let's drift now into one of these flowers. Imagine a morning glory, curled tightly through the night. Inside its cells, tiny signals wait. As dawn approaches, the light begins to shift. Even before it touches the ground, its photons are noticed, sensed by special receptors within the plant. These receptors are called phytochromes and cryptochromes. Like eyes without a gaze, they sense the quality and length of light.
The cryptochromes feel the blue part of morning light, while phytochromes measure red and far red. These are not just colors. They are messages. The plant reads them like time itself. Is it early? Late? How long has the night been? How strong is the light? These proteins remember yesterday's light and compare it to today's. And when the pattern is right, when the light is just so, they trigger changes deep within the flower's tissues. Imagine now the cells at the base of each petal beginning to swell. Not all at once, but gradually. Water rushes in, pressure builds, the petal moves, stretches, lifts. It is not just the petal that moves, it is the entire plant responding. A hormonal shift, a rearrangement of growth. Some petals unfurl like scrolls, others pop open like tiny bursts, but none of it happens without timing. This timing is written into the plant's circadian clock, the same inner rhythm you saw in green leaves and resting roots. But here, in the flower, it takes a more dramatic form. It leads to movement, to beauty, to revelation, and often to reproduction. Because when a flower opens, it doesn't do so just for its own sake. It opens for others, for pollinators, for the wind, for the possibility of fruit. The bloom is an invitation. But like any good invitation, it must be timed. A flower that opens too early may find no visitors, too late, and the chance is lost. So the plant waits for the right moment. Not a universal time, but one shaped by species, environment, and memory. Some desert flowers bloom only after rare rains. Some rainforest orchids open with the moon. The night-blooming jasmine releases its fragrance under starlight, when moths begin their flight. The sunflower, so often associated with daylight, actually prepares its face during the night, turning eastward in anticipation of morning. Every bloom is a story of rhythm. And some stories are short. There are flowers that bloom for just a few hours. Their entire opening and closing, an arc contained within one day. These flowers live briefly, but in that moment, they are perfect, as if the plant pours all of its energy into a single gesture, a single yes. You may wonder how the plant's internal rhythm stays aligned with the world outside. After all, days can change, clouds drift, shadows shift. But the flower's clock is not fixed like stone, it adjusts. Each morning's light acts as a cue, resetting the rhythm just slightly. Like a musician tuning their instrument, the plant uses light not only to know when, but to stay in tune with now. This process is called entrainment, a beautiful word for becoming synchronized with the environment. Through entrainment, the circadian clock in each flower adapts to seasonal changes. Days grow longer, then shorter, but the rhythm continues. A bloom that opened at 6 a.m. in spring may now open at 7 in autumn. The dance continues, but the timing shifts, always elegant. There are deeper layers to this timing, genetics woven through evolution. Certain flowers have been shaped over millennia to bloom in harmony with the creatures that pollinate them. A cactus might open at dusk because its partner is a bat. A lily might bloom at noon because bees are its companions. This is not just biology. It is relationship. It is trust. You think now of a meadow filled with wildflowers, each one blooming according to its own inner rhythm. Some open in morning, some in afternoon, some in moonlight. And together they create a living clock, a landscape of timekeepers, each one marking a different hour. Your breath slows as you imagine them, not as decorations, but as time itself made visible. Petals that open, not because they are told to, but because they remember, because their cells hold a history of sunrises. It's gentle to know that not everything in the world needs to be pushed, that some things bloom simply when it's time, that beauty can be an unfolding, not a reaching, that waiting can be wise. Perhaps you too have petals within you that are waiting to open, not rushed, not forced, but listening for the right moment, the right light, the quiet signal that says now. And as you drift closer to sleep, you feel surrounded by the rhythm of flowers, a rhythm not of alarms or obligations, but of sunlight and shadow, of memory and grace. In your garden of thought, blooms stir gently. Some have opened already, some are still resting. All of them move with time. All of them trust its pace. The flower's wisdom is not in its color or shape, but in when it chooses to show itself. And that wisdom lives in you too. A quiet knowing of your own rhythm, your own dawn. But flowers, like all living things, are shaped not just by light and time, but by the world around them. In the next chapter, we gently explore how plants feel, not with nerves or skin, but with a sensitivity so deep it bends toward gravity, sound, and touch. Chapter 6: The Moonlit Garden. The sun withdraws like a warm breath fading, and the garden enters a different kind of wakefulness. You sit quietly beneath a sky woven with stars, and the air feels gentler now, cooled by time and held by silence. At first glance, it may seem that everything has gone still. But if you linger, if you let your thoughts drift like mist between the leaves, you begin to notice. The garden has not fallen asleep. It has simply changed its language. The rhythms here at night are slower, deeper, older. They are not powered by the glaring clockwork of the day, but by the whispers of lunar pull, by the softness of absence. A hush fills the air, yet within it something stirs. Flowers, delicate and secretive, begin to open, not to the sun, but to the moon. Their petals gleam in silver light, as though remembering a promise made long ago, in the language only night understands. This is the moonlit garden, a place where plants dance not to brightness, but to reflection. And tonight, you are invited to walk slowly among them, to notice their quiet rituals, and to understand how even in the deepest dark, life listens, moves, and responds. Lunar clocks in the soil. Beneath your feet, below the roots, time is still ticking. But this is not the time of minutes or hours. It is the time of phases, of cycles. The moon, in its gentle orbit, pours its rhythm into the earth, and the earth carries that rhythm into the cells of plants. Just as sunlight stirs chlorophyll to wakefulness, moonlight calls forth subtler changes, not as urgent, but no less real. Some plants possess internal lunar clocks, an ability known as circalunar timing. These are not as well understood as circadian rhythms, but they exist, written like moonlight into the genome. For example, seaweeds on distant shores time their reproductive cycles with the tides, which are pulled by the moon. Their microscopic spores are released not randomly, but with precise lunar timing, so that the ocean's embrace is at its most generous. Even on dry land, the moon's pull is felt. Roots may swell more on full moon nights. Some seeds, it is believed, germinate more readily beneath moonlight. And the mysterious blooming of the night-blooming jasmine, of moonflowers and evening primrose, speaks of a secret choreography. A garden not ruled by daylight alone, but by the silver music of the moon. You don't need to understand every mechanism to feel it. Just walk barefoot. Just sit still long enough. You will sense it. A slow, watery awareness in the plants around you, as though they too are rising and falling, breathing not just with the sun, but with the sky's quieter face. The flowers that wait for night. There are certain flowers that the day never sees. All through the sunlight hours, they remain closed, quiet, almost secretive. And then, when darkness comes and the moon casts its gentle touch upon the leaves, they bloom, as if answering a soft call heard only in shadow. Take the moonflower. Its ivory white trumpet opens in the twilight, curling back slowly like a whispered smile. Its fragrance drifts like a ghost across the evening air, a perfume designed not for you, but for nocturnal pollinators like moths and bats. These flowers are shaped by a different audience, one that flutters with velvet wings and navigates by scent, not sight. Or look to the evening primrose, which waits patiently until dusk to open its golden blossoms. The transformation is sudden. One moment, the bud is tightly wound. The next, it unfurls like a quiet firework, lit not by flame, but by anticipation. Its petals glow faintly in the moonlight, and for just a few hours, it offers its nectar to the night. Why do these flowers wait? Why does the garden not sleep? Because night offers a kind of stillness that day cannot. Fewer distractions, less competition, a cooler touch. And in this gentler world, some plants have found their place. They have learned to thrive not by basking in the sun, but by whispering to the stars. They are nocturnal poets, soft-spoken and deliberate, composing their verses in scent and shape, not sound. You walk among them now. You inhale the cool air laced with their invisible stories, and for a moment you understand. The garden is never really asleep. It is simply dreaming in bloom. Star-guided roots and the pull of tides. The moon does not shine, it reflects. And yet, that borrowed light, that soft echo of day, can shift oceans. It can move tides. It can raise entire coastlines and lower them again with each breath of its orbit. And here, in the garden, that same pull reaches quietly into the stems and soil.
Roots are not blind. They respond to moisture, gravity, heat, and possibly even the moon. Though the evidence is still gathering, many gardeners and farmers have long believed that the moon affects plant growth. They speak of planting by the phases, sowing leafy crops as the moon waxes, root vegetables as it wanes. Their calendars are lunar, their trust placed in patterns older than writing.
Modern science is beginning to listen. Studies show subtle shifts, not dramatic but consistent, in water content and root growth during different lunar phases. It's as if the very cells of a plant are listening, not just to sunlight, but to something deeper, more rhythmic, more mysterious. You pause and place your hand on the soil. It feels cool, but alive. Beneath your palm, roots twist and reach, tracing ancient blueprints. Maybe they remember the ocean. Maybe they feel the moon. Maybe, just maybe, you do too. You're not just watching this garden. You are a part of it. The water in your veins, the pulses in your brain, they too are pulled by lunar tides. You, like the flowers, are more than your clock. You are a rhythm, a cycle, a being shaped by night as much as by day, dreaming in photons and silence. In the quietest hour of night, when even the crickets pause and the wind forgets to move, the moonlight becomes almost holy. It touches every leaf with a soft fingerprint, and in return, the plants shift, ever so slightly. You would miss it unless you were patient, unless you let go of the urge to measure. Here, in this silver quiet, the garden does not bloom for applause. It opens as an act of being. The moonflower does not wonder if it is seen. The jasmine does not ask who breathes its perfume. They offer their gifts anyway, because that is what life does in the dark. It unfolds, it dreams, it continues. Even without sunlight, photosensitive cells in some plants react to low light levels. They stretch or contract. They adjust their leaves. Some prepare for the coming dawn. Others, like those that bloom only at night, perform their brief and beautiful act in this secret time. Scientists have begun to track the gentle electrical pulses that run through plants. Faint, slow waves of current, almost like thought. And perhaps that's what this is. The garden thinking in silence. The trees are dreaming. The petals remember the sun while touching the stars. All of it moving through a night that is not empty, but full. Full of soft data, invisible timing, and the poetry of persistence. You sit still. The garden leans toward the moon, and so do you. Last lines. Somewhere beneath your skin, a memory of moonlight remains, not as light, but as rhythm, a signal not seen, but felt. And in the quiet, you begin to wonder, what other invisible forces guide us, even as we sleep? Chapter 7. Jet-lagged plants and moving suns. It begins when you imagine lifting a plant from one quiet windowsill and placing it on another, perhaps on the other side of the world. You imagine your fingers gently pressing into the soil as you repot it, the leaves sighing softly in your palm. The sun outside still shines, but it is no longer the same sun. Not to the plant, not to its ancient sense of time. Something invisible has shifted, a rhythm, a whisper, a pulse that no longer arrives on time. Though you may not hear it, the plant does. Not in the way you hear a sound or notice a clock ticking late, but deep within its cells, something starts to stir. Or rather, something fails to stir at the time it should. This, then, is how a plant becomes jet-lagged. In humans, the feeling of jet lag is familiar. It's a gentle confusion of time. Waking up when you should be asleep, blinking under strange sunlight, feeling hunger at the wrong hour. It is the sensation of having a clock within you that no longer matches the world outside. For plants, the sensation is different. Quieter, wordless, but no less real. Their clocks are embedded in their biology, rooted in a daily rhythm that does not rely on numbers, but on light itself. When that light arrives too early or too late, when the sky darkens before they expect or lingers too long, it sends their world into a slow, confused drift. The inner clock of a plant, its circadian rhythm, is like a lullaby played softly each day. Light begins the tune. Darkness finishes it. Over and over, the melody repeats, guiding when to open, when to close, when to bloom, when to rest. And just like any living thing that keeps time, plants rely on this rhythm to function, to photosynthesize at just the right hour, to grow tall in the presence of daylight, to conserve energy when dusk falls. When this rhythm is thrown off, perhaps by a journey, or a change in season, or by the human act of shifting their home, the melody falters, and the plant for a while becomes lost in time. Picture now a sunflower, cradled in a ceramic pot, flown from Paris to Tokyo. It sits beneath a sun that rises and sets many hours earlier than it once did. At first, it behaves as if the sun has made a mistake. Its leaves remain closed when they should unfurl. Its cellular machinery hesitates to begin photosynthesis. Its roots wait for night to fall, long after it already has. This is jet lag, woven into biology, a lull in trust between the plant and the sky. But it will not last forever. Over the course of several days, sometimes a week, sometimes longer, the plant begins to adapt. Not all at once and not without effort, but the light, persistent and real, begins to chip away at the confusion. Each dawn becomes a message, each sunset a reminder. This is the new rhythm, the sky says, and slowly the plant listens. Cells shift their cycle by minutes at a time, proteins adjust their production, hormones recalibrate. Like a musician finding their way back into the melody, the plant relearns the tempo of its new sun. This process of resetting the circadian clock is called entrainment. It is the biological equivalent of learning to trust a new beat. In the case of plants, it is driven primarily by light and temperature. The photoreceptors in leaves, those tiny translators of sunlight, pick up the cues of morning and night, transmitting signals that gradually synchronize the inner world to the outer one. Imagine a room of dancers, each out of step, slowly turning to face the same conductor. That is how entrainment works. Gentle, patient, persistent. But what's even more remarkable is how specific plants can be about their timing. Some flowers bloom only when light lasts longer than a certain number of hours. Others open only in short days. There are rice paddies that rely on precise monsoon rhythms and Arctic lichens that bloom under months of soft twilight. Each species carries its own expectation of time, its own relationship to the sun, which means that moving a plant across hemispheres can do more than cause jet lag. It can disrupt its entire life cycle. A rose that blooms in June may find itself blooming in December. A cactus used to drought may panic beneath weeks of clouded rain. Even without movement, light pollution alone can confuse these natural rhythms. Streetlights, headlights, and porch lights all send flickers of false day into the night. Some trees, bathed in urban glow, delay their leaf fall in autumn or bloom too soon in spring. Their internal clocks, tricked by the artificial sun, begin to misfire. And still, somehow, many plants find a way to adjust. Their flexibility, while not unlimited, is tenderly resilient. You might wonder, do plants know they are out of sync? Can they feel this internal drift? In a way, yes. Not with minds, but with molecules. Disruption of circadian rhythms can lead to reduced growth, lower immunity, and even failure to flower. Just as humans may grow tired, irritable, or disoriented from jet lag, plants can become biologically unwell. Their energy wanes, their cycles misalign, and yet time, like the seasons, continues onward. The plant learns, the cells remember, the light returns, and the rhythm is restored. It's humbling, isn't it? To realize that even a quiet, voiceless being, such as a potted basil plant, carries within it a living sense of time. Not built from gears or screens, but from ancient sunlight and patient adaptation. It does not know hours the way you do, But it knows when the sun should rise. It knows how long the night should be. And when that timing fails, it mourns in silence, before gently learning again. In laboratory experiments, scientists have moved plants across different artificial day-night cycles, simulating jet lag in petri dishes. They've observed that even detached leaves, separated from their parent plant, continue to exhibit circadian rhythms. They keep ticking, as if memory itself is held not in the brain, but in the light-sensitive code of life. In every chloroplast, a whisper of the sun's rhythm lingers. You rest your hand on the window sill. Outside, the moonlight touches the leaves of a fig tree. Perhaps it too has once been moved. Perhaps its roots have known another latitude, another sky. But now it breathes with this one. Its clock, once confused, now aligns with the stars above. It stretches toward dawn, not in haste, but in trust. The jet lag is gone. What remains is rhythm. And maybe, if you listen closely enough, you'll find that you too hold such a clock. One not set by your phone, but by the quiet choreography of light and breath. One that resets each morning. One that forgives every disorientation. Because every being, whether leaf or limb, finds its way home to the sun. And even in the dissonance of lost time, a new melody is always waiting to be learned.
Chapter 8. Seasons in a Leaf.
You lie still, listening to the hush outside your window. Perhaps the trees are rustling, perhaps not. But somewhere, out in the world, a single leaf rests in the dark. Its edges curl just slightly. Not from age, not from wind, but because the season is changing. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but in a rhythm the leaf has always known. You don't have to tell it it's autumn. It remembers. And tonight, so do you. You might imagine that a plant lives only in the now, that it rises with the sun, sleeps with the moon, and forgets what came before. But deep inside its cells, there is a slow archive, a kind of memory written not in words, but in reactions, a history built from temperature, from light, from the length of the days. While you may hold your memories in photographs and songs, a plant holds its memories in proteins, in sugars, in signals whispered from root to leaf.
Each spring, the cherry tree blooms at just the right moment, not because it sees other trees do it, but because it has counted the cold. It knows, in a silent and mathematical way, how long the winter has lasted. This is called verbalization, a long, slow awakening. Seeds and buds are locked tight until a certain amount of chill has passed. Not just any cold, and not too little. It must be just enough. The plant remembers the cold as if it were time itself, and only then, only when it knows the wait has been long enough, does it begin to stir. This is a kind of wisdom, isn't it? The wisdom of patience, of stillness, of not being rushed by the first warm day. You may feel a similar thing in yourself, how sometimes, even when spring is in the air, your body still carries winter in its bones. The plants feel it too, and so they wait, not sleeping, not dead, but quietly remembering the cold. Some plants require this cold to bloom at all. If a tulip bulb is moved to a warm place where it never experiences winter, it may never flower. The memory of winter is part of what awakens the blossom. It's as if the flower must dream of snow before it can imagine the sun. This is the poetry of dormancy, not a forgetting, but a holding, a keeping, a memory so deep that it doesn't need to be spoken. It simply unfolds. Inside a leaf, tiny mechanisms tick like clocks, though they don't count seconds. They count seasons. As the days shorten and light changes its quality, plants receive the message. The sun speaks through angle and hue, not volume. The days grow shorter, but the light also grows redder, softer, as the sun sits lower in the sky. This changing light is like a gentle note passed from sky to leaf. It is time, and the leaf begins to prepare. It stops making chlorophyll, the green pigment that has worked so tirelessly all summer. The green fades. Yellows and reds, always there beneath the surface, are finally seen. These colours are not new. They are the quiet memory of summer, held within the leaf. They are revealed, not painted, as if the tree is slowly showing you the record it has kept all year, a living journal, written in colour. And when the leaf falls, it is not a failure, it is a final, graceful exhale, a release of what has been carried. But how does a tree, which cannot move or speak, know how to remember? The secret is in epigenetics, a kind of chemical bookmark that plants leave in their DNA. You have DNA too, of course, and it stays mostly the same throughout your life. But in both you and in plants, chemical tags can attach to genes, marking them as on or off. These tags are influenced by the environment. Temperature, light, even drought can leave these marks, and in some cases these marks remain, even after the original signal is gone. So a cold winter might mark a plant's genes to say, "This is the time to prepare." And the plant remembers not with thoughts, but with molecules. It is not memory as you know it, but it is still a memory, a molecular echo of what the world has been.
Some of these memories even last across generations. A plant that survives drought may leave epigenetic marks that help its offspring be more resilient, as if the struggle becomes inheritance, not through change in the DNA letters, but through the way those letters are read. The memory of hardship becomes a kind of whisper to the future. Be ready. Even in seeds, there are stories already written.
This memory is not perfect. It is not like your memory, where a moment can be replayed in sound or smell or image. Plant memory is functional, it prepares, it adjusts. It is the kind of remembering that helps life keep going, like the way your skin remembers sunlight, or your breath remembers a rhythm. It is memory in the bones, in the blood, not in the mind. And it is tender. Plants are deeply sensitive to cues in the world around them. A few minutes more darkness each night, a shift in the breeze, a change in the song of the birds. All these things subtle, invisible, contribute to remembering. There is no single signal. There is only the whole story, being slowly pieced together until the plant knows, now. In rice and wheat, in moss and fern, in the trees that line your street and the weeds that crack your pavement, the memory of seasons is alive. Some remember floods, others remember fire. In the desert, seeds can sleep for years, waiting for a rare rain. When it comes, they bloom as if remembering that water ever existed. That too is memory, the anticipation of a world that might return. The idea that memory exists outside of the brain may seem strange, but it is all around you. The earth remembers the turning of the moon, the tide remembers the pull, and the plants, they remember the year, one quiet molecule at a time. You breathe in slowly, watching the shadow of a tree outside your window. Somewhere in that tree a leaf is beginning to change, not because it is told, but because it remembers the long arc of light. It remembers the cold wind. It remembers the sun's softness. And you too feel the seasons shift within you, in a way you cannot name. This memory, this soft chemical story is not about the past alone. It is about preparation, about cycles, about the next becoming. As one season folds into another, nothing is lost. Everything is carried. Everything is transformed.
And so the leaf falls, and the seed waits, and the bud remains tight, not because it is afraid, but because it remembers what will come. The right time, the right warmth, the right breath of wind. You are like that too sometimes. You wait, quietly, without knowing why. You sense a change before it arrives. You feel the light shift in ways that cannot be measured by clocks. You carry seasons in your body, not just in memory, but in motion, in pause, in becoming. The leaf, the tree, the soil beneath, they all know something the calendar does not. They remember with their whole being. And in the stillness of night, so do you. Somewhere far beneath the fallen leaves, a seed waits in darkness, not asleep, not forgotten, but preparing. And in the next chapter, you will follow that waiting seed and discover how time hides in every pause. Chapter 9. The Touch of Time on a Vine. There is a vine outside your window. You've seen it, haven't you? Twisting softly around the fence post, reaching toward the light, inching upward in silence. You never catch it in the act. You look away, and when you glance back, it has moved. Not far, not fast, but just enough to remind you it is alive. It is listening. It is responding. Time touches everything. You feel it in your breath, in the hush between heartbeats. But what does time feel like to a plant? Without eyes, without ears, without muscles or legs. How does it move through the day? Slowly, patiently, with gestures smaller than seconds. The vine does not measure hours as you do. Instead, it dances to the unseen music of light, of temperature, of gravity. Let's begin with a moment. A vine sends out a tendril, slender, green, searching. It grows outward, not in a straight line, but in a slow spiral. This motion has a name: circumnutation, a soft, circular pattern that repeats itself. It is not aimless. It is exploratory, like a hand reaching in the dark, feeling for the familiar. The tendril twirls in the air, not because it wants to look elegant, but because this pattern increases its chance of finding something to hold. A branch, a stick, a trellis. And once it touches, it curls tighter. It holds. It remembers. This movement, this curling, is not instant. It unfolds over hours. But inside the cells, changes are happening second by second. Tiny rivers of ions shifting direction, growth hormones concentrating on one side of the tendril more than the other, prompting it to bend. You don't see it, but it is happening all the time. In your world, motion is often defined by speed. Running, driving, blinking, turning. But the plant has no such need. Its motion is not defined by urgency. It is defined by response. A vine does not chase the sun. It leans into it. A sunflower does not rush to bloom. It opens when the light is right. This is a different relationship with time. Not of chasing, but of sinking. You may have seen the Mimosa pudica, the sensitive plant. When touched, its leaves fold inward as if startled. This happens quickly, within seconds, a visible reaction. But behind this movement lies a deep coordination. Cells losing water pressure on cue, like balloons deflating, allowing the leaf to collapse. This is a rare case where plant movement seems fast to the human eye. Yet even this movement is rooted in the slow rhythm of inner control. Then there are plants that bloom on precise schedules. Night-blooming jasmine, for instance, releasing its scent only after dusk. Or the queen of the night, a cactus that opens its blossom for just one night a year, guided by temperature, moonlight, and memory. These are not coincidences. They are practiced responses, patterns learned through evolution, whispered forward through genes and light.
Let us return to the vine. Imagine watching it over time. With each passing hour, its tip traces a looping path through the air. It is not random, it is a search, and when the tendril finds contact, it begins to coil more tightly. This process is called thigmotropism, a response to touch. The cells on one side of the tendril slow their growth, while the other side speeds up. The vine bends, not because it wants to, but because it must. It has found an anchor, and now it wraps itself in embrace.
You've seen this in climbing beans, in ivy, in morning glories that scale fences and walls. They are not pulled by gravity alone. They are drawn by connection. The world gives them clues, surfaces, textures, warmth, and they answer back with motion. No eyes, no brain, just response, just time. Some vines grow so slowly you could sit beside them for hours and see nothing move. But set up a time-lapse camera and you'll witness their story unfold. A gentle winding, a purposeful curve, a reach and hold and twist. They are always moving, just not at your pace. This slow motion is not lazy, it is deliberate. Growth itself is a kind of motion, a pushing outward, a reshaping of space. The tip of a root, for example, senses gravity and bends downward. The shoot above the soil senses light and grows toward it. This is how a seed becomes a plant, not by magic, but by continuous, slow adjustment. Each new cell, each inch of elongation, is a step in a silent dance. Inside the vine, cells expand in different directions. Microtubules, tiny scaffolds within the cell, orient themselves to guide growth. Hormones like auxin are sent in uneven flows, telling the plant where to soften, where to stretch. Time becomes a map of instructions. Each moment tells the vine not just where it is, but what to do next. Even plants that seem still are balancing. Leaves angle themselves to maximize sunlight. Petals close in the evening to protect pollen. Stomata, microscopic pores on leaves, open and close like tiny mouths, regulating breath. They inhale carbon dioxide. They exhale oxygen. All in rhythm, all in time. There is a word in Japanese, ma. It means the space between the silence, the pause, the interval. A moment of stillness that carries meaning. The motion of a vine carries this same sense of ma. Its beauty lies not in rushing, but in the tension of its timing. The pause before the bend. The slow spiral toward connection. The elegance of growth that does not need to be seen to be real. In your own body, there are rhythms you do not notice. The pulsing of blood, the unfolding of breath, the tiny adjustments your spine makes while you sit still. You, too, are always in motion. Quiet, subtle, internal motion. Like the vine, you are reaching in ways you do not always feel. The more you watch a plant, the more you begin to feel time differently. Not in hours or days, but in changes. A new leaf, a longer stem, a fresh curl. These are not dramatic events, but they are stories. Stories told in centimeters and angles. Stories told in slow motion. You learn that patience is not the absence of action. It is the presence of quiet intention. Time touches the vine, and the vine responds not with speed, but with grace. With a turning, with a holding, with a reaching that never demands, only trusts. And perhaps that is something you can carry with you. The sense that it is okay to move slowly. That some of the deepest growth happens when it feels like nothing is happening at all. Now imagine the garden at night, the stars above, the vines below, each leaf curled in its own memory of light. Each stem quietly shifts its weight, each root listening to the soil. Nothing shouts, nothing hurries, yet everything is changing. And far out beyond your window, a single tendril stretches just a little farther than it did yesterday. It does not know how far it must go. It does not worry. It simply follows the feeling of time on its skin and trusts that the support it seeks will be there when it is ready to hold. And now, if you listen even more closely, you may begin to sense something beneath the vines and roots. Something smaller still, yet no less alive. In the next chapter, we will follow time as it dances in molecules, how the rhythm of life begins in the tiniest places of all. Chapter 10, The Dreaming Forest. You return to the forest, but it does not feel like a return. It feels like waking up into a place that has always known you. The air is still, the path is soft, and the trees seem to lean just slightly as though greeting your presence with quiet recognition. You take a slow breath. The scent of moss and bark drifts around you, damp, earthy, ancient. It is not just a smell. It is a memory stirring in the deepest corners of your being. You are not the same as when you first stepped among the trees. Now you listen differently. You feel more slowly. You notice the rhythm that pulses beneath each leaf, beneath each shadow that slides across the forest floor. This is not a still world. It is a world in motion, not hurried, not loud, but full of time. And now you begin to feel how the forest dreams. Each tree you pass holds a record of time, in its rings, in its shape, in the curve of its trunk. But beyond the visible, there are rhythms inside. Cycles of photosynthesis, of water rising and falling, of leaves opening and closing in response to the day. This is a living calendar, not one marked by human hands, but by light, temperature, and the turning of the earth. You pause beside a birch, its bark peeling like old paper. You wonder what it remembers, how many dawns it has greeted, how many winters it has endured. You place your hand on its side. It is cool, silent, and yet you feel the vibration of life within it, soft and steady. Trees do not sleep like you do, but they have rhythms. At night, they rest, not fully, but enough. Enough to conserve energy, to breathe a little more slowly, to wait. This resting state is not easily seen, but science has revealed that even trees move during the night. Their branches droop slightly, their trunks shrink and swell as water shifts within. These are circadian rhythms, daily cycles that do not depend on sunlight alone, but are generated from within, like a heartbeat, like breath. You walk farther. The canopy above shifts with every step. Dapples of moonlight falling across the path like silver threads. Somewhere nearby, a leaf folds softly for the night. Somewhere else, a flower closes its petals as if tucking itself in. These are not just reactions. They are responses to time, internal clocks ticking silently within each cell. You sit on a low rock and let yourself feel the slowness, the steadiness. In this forest, time is not something to escape or conquer. It is something to follow, to trust. The trees are never late. The leaves do not rush. And yet, everything happens. Every blooming, every turning, every fall, exactly when it must. You begin to see how each part of the forest is in conversation with time. The moss that grows only where shade lingers, the fungi that emerge after rain, the saplings that wait for a gap in the canopy, knowing somehow that light will one day arrive. This is not randomness. It is rhythm. It is story. Even the roots beneath your feet are listening. In the darkness of soil, they stretch and pause, following moisture, following warmth. Signals pass between them, not in words, but in chemicals, in electrical pulses. Roots share warnings, share food, share the memory of seasons. Through networks we cannot see, the forest speaks to itself, and time moves through that conversation like a soft current. You look up, watching the outlines of branches weave against the night sky. You remember now that leaves are not just for catching light, they are for keeping time. Each cell within a leaf responds to cycles of day and night. Genes switch on and off. Sugars are stored and used. Even without light, the cycle continues, guided by the plant's inner clock. And that clock, like yours, can drift, can shift, but it can also be reset. The forest uses the rising sun as its anchor, its metronome, and so do you. You wake with it, even if you don't always know it. Your body, like the tree, like the flower, is timed to the sky. You remember now the stories you've heard of trees flowering all at once across miles, triggered by the same length of day, of seeds that sprout only after fire, remembering the heat through chemical scars, of flowers that open only at dusk, sensing the light's change in color. These are not myths. They are moments of exquisite timing. The forest has no alarms, and yet nothing is forgotten. It remembers light not just as brightness, but as language. The red shift of evening tells it one thing, the blue sharpness of morning another. These changes guide everything: growth, rest, bloom, retreat. It is a language made of photons, and the leaves are fluent. You begin to feel a kinship with this rhythm. How often have you felt off balance when your timing is rushed or ignored? When your inner seasons are out of sync with the world outside? But here, in the forest, there is no shame in slowness, no penalty for pause. Time is not something to beat. It is something to belong to. A breeze passes. The trees do not resist it. They sway, not stiffly, but with grace, as if remembering that motion is part of the breath of being. You breathe with them now, deeper, slower, and you realize the forest is not dreaming like a person. The forest is the dream, a living memory of time made visible. The leaves rustle above you like soft thoughts. The roots below hum with silent decisions. And the air between them, between you, is full of rhythm. Even in the stillness, there is motion. Even in the dark, there is memory.
You rise slowly, feeling your body attuned to the pulse of this place. Your steps feel quieter now, not because the world has changed, but because you have. You have begun to hear the tempo of the trees. You have begun to feel what it means to move with the light, not against it. To let shadow be part of the pattern.
This is the end of the first part of your journey, but not the end of time. Ahead lies more, not in forests, but in the unseen, in the molecules that keep the beat, in the deep rhythms inside every living cell. You walk toward the edge of the clearing. Behind you, the forest breathes on, slow and steady. Ahead, something smaller waits. A world within the world where time still ticks, though no clock can measure it. Chapter 11. The Clockwork Seed. You hold a seed in the palm of your hand. It is small, perhaps the size of a pebble or a speck of earth. You might think it is asleep, unmoving, unfeeling, untouched by time. But inside this quiet speck, something waits. Not passively like a stone lying in the rain, but with the soft intensity of purpose. This is not sleep. It is listening. Within the seed, a hidden clock ticks. Not a clock made of gears or glass, but of molecules, messengers and memory keepers, shaped by evolution and sculpted by light. The seed does not open its eyes. It does not have any, but it sees, in its own way, with senses older than language, and it waits for the world to speak. You imagine the soil it might one day rest in, dark and warm, touched by rain, surrounded by the songs of nearby roots. The seed listens for signs: temperature, moisture, the length of the day, the softness of the ground. These are not background details. They are signals. And the seed, like a secret watchmaker, records each one. It begins with moisture, the very first whisper. A raindrop touches the earth, and the dry shell of the seed begins to soften. It swells, just slightly, like a breath taken in. Water is not just hydration, it is permission. A signal that says, perhaps this is the right time. Perhaps the drought has passed. But even then, the seed does not move recklessly. It waits. Because moisture alone is not enough. A false rain can fall in the wrong season. And so the seed consults another clock, temperature. It keeps track in its own invisible way, counting days above or below a certain warmth. Some seeds must feel a chill before they will grow, a winter, to be certain that spring is truly near. Others wait for heat, knowing that the cold would only kill what they might become. Inside the seed, these clues gather like stars in a sky. One by one, they align. The seed's inner chemistry shifts in tiny, deliberate ways. Enzymes awaken, hormones stir. All the while, its outer shell remains quiet, still. But deep inside, the decision is forming. Some seeds even listen to light, not with eyes, but with photoreceptors, molecular tools that can detect the difference between day and night. The length of daylight becomes a kind of whisper from the sun. Now, or not yet. Certain seeds will only germinate when the days grow long, sensing that summer is on its way. Others wait for shortening light, knowing autumn brings cooler days and wet soil, perfect for slow, steady growth. And time for the seed is not linear. It is circular, seasonal, patterned. This is not the time of machines or calendars, but the soft spiral of nature's rhythm, repeating, shifting, always humming just beneath the surface. In this rhythm, the seed remembers. Some seeds have clocks that span years. They wait through heat and frost, drought and flood, not because they are inert, but because they are wise. They will not rise too soon. Beneath the soil, seeds that once scattered from trees or tumbled from flowers lie in silence, not forgotten, but listening. If you could shrink yourself and enter one, you would find a universe there. Proteins folded into tight arrangements, RNA strands like ancient scripts, sugars stored like buried treasure. Every molecule placed precisely, sleeping in tension, waiting for the signal. And then it comes. Perhaps it's the seventh day of warm soil after a long winter, or the moment when water touches a tiny crack and rushes inward, or a soft shift in the ratio of red to far red light, telling the seed it is not buried too deep. Whatever it is, the clocks align. The moment arrives, and the seed awakens. It does not explode. It does not shout. It simply unfolds. A tiny root pushes downward, not blindly, but guided by gravity. It reaches for moisture, for anchoring. Soon after, a shoot rises up, nudged toward the light. And in that moment, the future begins. What looks like a sprout is really a memory unfurling. The decisions made in darkness now bloom into action. The seed's patient calculations of rain and heat and time have turned into life. It is not luck. It is ancient design. Even more remarkable are the seeds that can wait decades, even centuries. The lotus seed, buried in dry lake beds, has been known to germinate after more than 1,000 years. In this suspended sleep, Its inner timekeeper still works, slowly, gently, faithfully. What kind of patience is that? What kind of clock survives the silence of centuries? Scientists call this dormancy, a state of intentional pause. Not brokenness, not failure, but an exquisite form of endurance. A way of saying, I will rise, but not yet. The world is not ready, or I am not until the signs are sure. And this, too, is part of the poetry. Seeds are not rushed. They do not compare. They do not envy the sprouts that bloom too early or wilt too late. Each has its own calibration, tuned by its environment, its species, and its story. And they listen. What happens inside the seed, those slow awakenings, is guided by a balance of chemicals like abscisic acid and gibberellins. One whispers, wait. The other urges, go. And between them, a conversation unfolds. As conditions change, the volume shifts. The timekeeper adjusts. And eventually, the gate opens. You begin to realize that timing in nature is not a coincidence. It is a skill, an art, a science carved over millennia. The seed is both listener and mathematician, dreamer and survivor. It does not guess. It knows. And here you are, lying still beneath your own sky, perhaps wrapped in a blanket of quiet or the hush of your thoughts. You are like the seed in some way, waiting, listening, measuring moments without rush. You too carry rhythms inside you, clocks that don't tick but breathe. Maybe part of you is waiting for something too. A season, a signal, a soft enough world to begin again. The seed teaches you that rest is not waste, that slowness is strength, that timing is not about speed, but wisdom, and that even in silence, a future can be forming. If you sit quietly now, even for a moment, you might feel your own hidden timekeeper beating gently, telling you, you are not late, you are not lost, you are just listening. And perhaps that's what everything in nature does. Listens, measures, and when the signs are true, begins. But how does the rest of the world respond when the seed finally stirs? What whispers back from the soil, the roots, the fungi nearby, in that shared silence beneath our feet? The answer lies deeper still. Chapter 12. Time lives in the stem. It begins in the quiet of the earth, deep where roots nestle in the cool embrace of soil. You imagine a seedling stirring, not with noise or haste, but with the kind of patience that only the natural world understands. From this humble beginning, a stem rises, not just to lift leaves into light, but to carry the voice of time upward. The stem is not simply a bridge between root and sky. It is a living conductor of messages, a fluent reader of the sun's passage and the deep murmurings of the ground below. You notice how each part of the plant seems to know what the others are doing. Roots grow deeper when the soil cools, and leaves unfold wider when light lingers longer. But what keeps them in harmony? What ensures that the root, buried in darkness, can somehow keep time with the leaf, basking in the sky? The answer lives in the stem, in the slender green column that winds upward like the spine of a story. Inside this stem, time moves not as ticking seconds, but as signals, soft biochemical ripples that carry information about light, darkness, water, and warmth. These signals do not shout, they glide. They whisper through cells and fibers, telling each part of the plant what the others feel, what they need, and what the world is becoming. You can think of it as a river of light, flowing without light, a stream of signals made not of sound but of meaning. There is a special kind of molecule that helps make this possible. It's called auxin. It moves downward from the leaves and tips, guiding the growth of the stem and letting it bend toward where the sun will be. Auxin is not a clock by itself, but it listens to the clock, responding to the signals that time brings. When morning light returns, auxin shifts. When night deepens, it flows more slowly, and so the stem leans, elongates, adjusts. It is, in a way, always reaching for what will come next. You picture this happening in slow motion, a sunflower turning toward the east, not because it sees, but because the messages within its stem have learned the rhythm of the day. Or a vine curling along a wall, responding not to touch alone, but to a sense of when and how quickly to grow. This is not mindless motion. It is timed motion, a choreography shaped by days, nights, and the soft tug of seasonal change.
The stem is also a highway of sorts, for signals from the root. Deep below, the roots sense moisture, detect minerals, and feel the temperature of the earth's breath. That information travels up the stem, moving through special tissues like xylem and phloem, not just carrying water or nutrients, but carrying context. The root might say, "The soil is dry," and the leaf through the stem responds by closing its tiny mouths, its stomata, to hold on to more water. These exchanges are not rushed. They do not panic. They unfold like a conversation between old friends, slow and knowing. You begin to feel it too, the calmness of that pace. In your own life, so many signals compete for attention. But in the plant, everything moves in time with something larger, the arc of the sun, the shape of the season, the pulse of the earth itself. Even more quietly, there is another layer, the molecular timekeepers. Inside the cells of the stem, tiny loops of proteins rise and fall with the day. They build, break down, and rebuild again, cycling every 24 hours like the ticking of a soft inner metronome. These are the circadian rhythms of the plant, and they do not only live in the leaves. The stem holds them too. Even if you cut a piece of stem and kept it in the dark, its cells would still pulse in time, at least for a while, like an echo of sunlight remembered. You may wonder, why would a plant need so many layers of timekeeping? Because the world is not predictable. The light may shift, a cloud may linger, a drought may stretch too long, and so the stem must do more than carry signals. It must adapt them, smooth them, filter the noise and pass on only what is useful. In this way, the stem becomes something even more than a messenger. It becomes a translator of time. You might picture it now. The plant is a kind of quiet clock tower. The roots listening below, the leaves sensing above, and the stem standing between them, turning messages into meaning. Every shift in daylight, every drop of rain, every warm breeze or cold gust is felt. Not all at once, but in the stem's careful rhythm. It is not reacting to the world. It is reading it, slowly, deliberately, as if each moment were a word, and the stem were learning to write the season into the shape of its body. There is a reason stems spiral the way they do. This pattern, called phyllotaxis, isn't random. It follows mathematical laws, often forming spirals that reflect the golden ratio. This pattern helps light reach every leaf, helps water flow evenly, helps the plant balance itself. But it also helps time move more efficiently. When messages travel in spirals, they pass through more cells, touch more points, create richer awareness. It's as if time in the plant prefers to dance in curves rather than straight lines. And that spiral is not only external. Inside the stem, growth doesn't happen all at once. It pulses. It surges gently in the morning, then rests. It shifts as the day changes. These fluctuations are guided by internal cues, but also by the outside world. The stem, in essence, is a responsive thread. It pulls growth upward only when the world says yes. You realise now that when you walk through a garden and see the stems leaning, stretching, thickening, twisting, you are seeing time made visible. Not the mechanical tick of hours, but the living sweep of rhythm. A stem that curves toward a window, a tree trunk that grows in spirals, a blade of grass that rises faster in spring than in winter. These are all ways time is written into the green. And it does not end there. As the plant grows, it remembers. Older parts of the stem carry scars, where leaves once grew and fell, where buds once bloomed. These markings are not just physical, they are chronological. They are a history of the plant's experience with time, what it endured when it paused, how it responded. In trees, these marks become rings. In vines, they become the curl of memory. You imagine now that the stem is not just a structure, but a scroll, a story being written upward, line by line, in green ink. You can't read it with your eyes, but the plant can. Each new node knows what came before. Each new leaf arrives with the wisdom of the stem's past. The plant moves forward in time by growing upward, but never without carrying what time has already taught it. This, perhaps, is what we overlook most, that in plants time is not a thing to be measured, it is something to be embodied, to be translated through the grace of motion and the patience of stillness. And the stem, so often ignored, so easily seen as just a stick, is the quiet instrument through which that translation takes place. You breathe a little slower now. You picture a single stalk of bamboo, tall, slender, swaying in the dusk. Inside it, unseen, messages rise and fall, gently guiding its dance with the wind. Its rhythm is not hurried, its choices are not rushed, and yet, over time, it grows taller than you ever thought possible. You rest in that knowing that life doesn't shout its progress. It listens, it waits, it responds, and when it moves with the world, not against it. And if the stem listens to both root and leaf, if it harmonizes the underworld and the sky, then perhaps it is not the only bridge. Perhaps in your own body there is also something soft, internal and quiet, that knows how to listen for time, and that knows how to pass it on. But what happens when that signal rises all the way to the leaf? What does the leaf do when time arrives? That's where the next journey begins. Chapter 13. Memory in the Morning Glory. You begin in the quiet blue hush before dawn. The world is still sleeping, but something in the garden stirs. The Morning Glory, delicate, coiled, waiting, begins to loosen her spiral. Not because the sun is already shining, but because she knows it will. You watch her bloom, not in reaction, but in expectation. And you wonder, how does she remember? Memory in a plant is not like yours. It does not gather names, stories, or faces. It does not rewind moments or dream of futures. But it does something just as profound. It repeats. It learns from rhythms, and most gently of all, it holds on to patterns until they become part of its being. This kind of memory isn't held in a brain. It's woven into the very structure of the living thing. The Morning Glory is a quiet teacher of this truth. Each night she folds herself inward, as if returning to sleep, and each morning she opens wide, like a breath taken in full trust. This ritual isn't random. It is tuned to time, not the harsh numbers of clocks, but the softer cycles of day and night, of warmth and shadow. Even if you placed her in a room without sunlight, she would still try to bloom when she expects the light to come. That expectation, that echo of previous days, is a kind of memory. Scientists call this circadian memory, a rhythm that continues even when the signal fades. It lives deep in the cells, not as static storage, but as a loop of chemical events that reset, rewind, and start again every 24 hours. The Morning Glory is just one example, but you begin to see many plants do this. They close their stomata at night, even without darkness. They grow taller in anticipation of spring. They bend toward where the sun used to rise. It is not thought, but it is awareness. It is not reflection, but it is remembrance. You trace the arc of a Morning Glory vine with your mind, the way it curls up a post or spirals gently around itself. That curling too is memory in motion. The vine touches something, recoils, and remembers the direction. It avoids the same spot twice. It learns where to climb. You picture it reaching, pausing, correcting. Each tendril a small act of recognition, a record of what the world offered yesterday. But perhaps the most beautiful memory the Morning Glory holds is its commitment to ritual. She wakes and sleeps not by chance, but by devotion. Her petals unfold like bells, each day rung into being by light she doesn't yet see. Even when clouds linger, even when days grow shorter, she still begins her stretch. Because the memory of sunlight is stronger than its absence. This isn't just survival, it's rhythm. The plant is syncing with time, with cycles, with the reliable beat of the earth turning. You imagine a world where memory isn't used to worry or regret, but only to align, only to respond with grace. That is how the morning glory lives, and this rhythm is passed on. Seeds, even before they sprout, remember, they know when to wait and when to rise. A seed buried in autumn does not grow immediately. It sleeps, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for years, until the temperature tells it, now. But waiting is not idle. It is a kind of listening. The seed does not think, but it listens. And that too is a form of memory. The memory of winter, the memory of light returning. These are imprinted not in thought, but in chemistry. Hormones like abscisic acid and gibberellin shift their balance inside the seed. As time passes, one quiets and the other rises. Eventually the balance tips and the seed wakes. This is how plants remember seasons, how they know not just what is, but what was. You walk through a meadow in your mind, clover that blooms in rhythm with the bees, trees that drop their leaves not when it is cold, but when it becomes cold in the same way it once did. Wildflowers that rise together, like a choir trained by past springtimes. These are not reactions. They are rehearsals of memory, performed again and again until the world becomes a stage of knowing. In the morning glory, this performance is especially delicate. Her flowers bloom for just one day, one sunrise, one golden moment, and then they curl, wilt, and let go. But the plant remembers. Tomorrow she will do it again, not because she was told, but because her very structure has kept the score. There is something tender in that. The idea that a plant can hold time inside it, not as fear, but as faith. The morning glory does not worry whether the sun will rise. She prepares for it. She leans toward it. She becomes the sunrise before it comes. You begin to wonder about your own rhythms, the way your body anticipates sleep, even before you feel tired, the way you sense the morning before the alarm. There are clocks inside you too, shaped not by schedules but by experience, by memory that lives in blood and breath, not words. And like the plant, your rhythms are not just your own. They are inherited, passed through generations. There are plants that bloom only once every few years, and yet they all bloom together, as if remembering a shared moment. Bamboo grows that flower across continents at the same time, even when separated by oceans. Their seeds were scattered long ago, but their memory is the same. How do they know? No one fully understands, but something ancient remembers, something silent and green. Perhaps memory is not only in the mind. Perhaps it lives in timing, in the spaces between events, in the way a habit becomes a part of who you are. You think of the morning glory again, her patience, her persistence, her soft trust in time. And what of the days when the sun doesn't shine, when the cold comes early or the clouds stay long? Even then she tries. Even then she begins to bloom. Even if her petals do not fully open, the motion still begins. Because memory in her is not perfection. It is hope. It is continuity. A promise to try again tomorrow. You feel that promise in your chest, in the breath you take before sleep, in the slow turning of thought toward rest. There is something inside you that remembers peace, that leans toward light, even when it has been dark for a long time. And so you fall into rhythm, not forced, not planned, but gentle and deep, like petals opening, like roots remembering rain, like a song that repeats not because it must, but because it belongs. The morning glory fades by midday. She does not hold on. She lets go. And in that letting go, there is another kind of memory, the kind that trusts the next day will come. You rest in that rhythm now. You begin to feel the softness of remembering without effort. You begin to trust your own cycles, your own turning toward light. And as you drift, you sense something else awakening above the bloom, a shift in the sky, a signal far more ancient than the clock, a pull from something higher, But how do plants know when to bloom together? What guides an entire forest or field to move as one? That's where the next story will begin. Chapter 14. The Timekeepers of the Desert. You step into the desert slowly, like placing your foot into the memory of heat. The air here moves differently, not with haste, but with purpose. There is no room for waste. Time in the desert doesn't drift like mist or pass like waves. It strikes, exact and unforgiving, like light through a magnifying glass. And yet, life still blooms. All around you the land appears still. The sand holds its breath. The stones remember days that burned. But tucked between rocks, curled in folds of earth, something stirs. A leaf, a bud, a root waiting for its moment. In this place, timing is not a luxury. It is a law. Desert plants do not guess. They do not gamble. They count the minutes between life and loss. You watch a cactus. Tall, calm, thick-skinned against the heat. Its arms lift not in praise, but in precision. Each spine is a sentinel, each groove a memory. This cactus opens its pores, its stomata, not during the day like most plants, but at night. When the sun sinks and the air cools, it breathes. Just for a while, enough to gather what it needs. Then it closes again. A rhythm of silence, a breath in the dark. This behaviour is known as CAM, crassulation acid metabolism, a long name for a simple wisdom. Wait until it is safe. Hold on to water like gold. Capture carbon dioxide at night. Store it like a secret, and use it to grow come morning. You begin to see desert plants have clocks, but their hands move with care. They tick softly in moonlight. And when it rains, the whole desert awakens. Seeds that have waited years crack open within hours. Blooms rise like dreams before sunrise. It's not just beauty, it's choreography. These plants carry the memory of every rare storm, ready to act when the signal comes. You imagine a seed, asleep for a decade, whispering to itself in dry soil. Wait, not yet, now. This kind of timing is called opportunistic dormancy, a pause that listens, a stillness filled with potential. These seeds don't bloom until the cues align, temperature, moisture, light. But when they do, it is as if the desert sings. Poppies, lilies, tiny green threads of grass, each one following a schedule older than the sand beneath them. You kneel by a desert lily, her petals pale as morning fog. She bloomed last night just before the sun returned. Why then? Because her pollinators, certain moths, only fly in the dark. If she had waited for daylight, she would have bloomed in vain. But she knew. Her body remembered. Her clock was aligned not just with time, but with relationship. Timing here is not only about survival, it's about harmony. Even the saguaro, tall and ancient, knows when to bloom. Just a few nights each year, its white blossoms open, and they do so in chorus, not randomly, but together, across the desert. This way, they attract the bats that pollinate them. Bats flying low and fast, guided by scent and moonlight. The saguaros know this, not consciously, but deeply. Their clocks are not soloists, they are parts of a symphony. You feel it now. In this extreme world, time becomes thin and bright. There is no softness to waste. So plants adapt by becoming precise. They do not wait for comfort. They respond to challenge. They shrink their leaves to spines to save moisture. They turn their surfaces away from the sun. Some plants move their leaves like mirrors, angling to reflect light rather than absorb it. And yet, for all this carefulness, there is grace here. Not tightness, but trust. A desert plant doesn't force its schedule. It senses. It aligns. It becomes a vessel for timing rather than a master of it. And so can you. You feel yourself slow, matched to this world of deliberate action. One breath, one blink, one moment at a time. The mesquite tree teaches this too. Its roots can reach over 50 meters below the surface, drinking from water others will never touch. But it doesn't send its roots blindly. It times their growth with the memory of past seasons, with subtle shifts in underground temperature, with echoes of where water once was. Even in the darkness, the tree remembers, and it moves accordingly. Time, here, is felt through the body, through chemical messengers and stretching roots, through waxy coatings and folded leaves. You no longer think of time as something you wear on your wrist. You begin to feel it in the bones of the land, in the pattern of the wind, in the pause before a bloom. And this awareness, this still rhythm, is not separate from beauty. The desert doesn't hide its loveliness, it concentrates it. A cactus flower is not just pretty, it is exquisite because it blooms rarely, only when time allows. You walk past a clump of ocotillo, for months just spiny green sticks. But after a single rain, red blossoms burst from their tips, like lanterns, like applause. Why so sudden? Because delay would mean failure. The sun will return quickly, the heat will rise again. There is a window, small and fleeting, and the plant must step through it exactly when it opens. This is how you learn that in the desert beauty is not fragile, it is timed. You think of your own moments, the ones that seem too rare too fast. Maybe they weren't gone too soon. Maybe they bloomed exactly when they should. Maybe you, like the desert lily, knew something without knowing it. Maybe you too carry clocks that count more than hours. In the desert, even death has a role in timing. When a cactus collapses after decades, its body decomposes slowly. And as it does, it releases nutrients that other seeds have been waiting for. Its passing becomes another signal, another rhythm in the great unfolding. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is rushed. As night falls in this silent land, you listen for sound and realize time itself hums here, not with noise, but with necessity. You sit beside a creosote bush, ancient, unchanged for thousands of years. Its leaves smell of rain. Its roots touch the roots of its younger self, sprouting outward in a ring, century after century. This too is memory, a memory so long that the plant becomes time itself. And just as you feel you've understood the slowness of the desert, something shifts. A breeze, barely there. A moth stirs. A flower begins to close. And you remember, even precision must yield. Even the most careful rhythms must make space for change. You stand now in the shadow of a yucca, its tall stalk reaching skyward. It will bloom only once before it dies. A final act of brilliance. But even that final bloom is timed to the moon, to the arrival of a tiny moth that will carry its pollen. You look up. You see not just stars, but signals. And you begin to feel that in the desert, time is written in everything. Not measured, but lived. Not watched, but kept. Held in roots, released in rain, echoed in the silence. And if a single flower can wait 10 years to bloom, what else might be waiting, far beneath the surface of time? Perhaps it's not only plants that bloom in rhythm with others. Perhaps across forests and fields, across oceans and hills, there are secret calendars we do not see, and that is where the next story will lead you. Chapter 15, The Forest That Changes Colour.
The forest waits, quietly, patiently. There is no rush in its rhythm, no panic in its preparation. As summer leans away from the sun, the daylight begins to slip through thinner hours. Shadows grow longer, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, something within each tree begins to listen more carefully. You walk beneath the canopy as it begins its transformation. Not yet bright, not yet fallen, but sensing. Every leaf a sentinel, every branch a soft antenna for time. The green that once dazzled in photosynthesis is becoming thoughtful, subdued, a little quieter with each shortening day. It is not death. It is memory preparing for rest. And so begins the turning. Gold, amber, flame, rust. The forest does not wait for winter to arrive. It welcomes it by changing clothes. This chapter walks gently into the science behind that change, how trees read the language of light, how molecules rearrange to paint the forest's farewell, and how the rhythm of letting go is not loss, but an ancient act of knowing. You pause at the edge of a woodland path, where the light is a bit softer than it was a month ago. The leaves above you seem to shimmer differently now, not just from the breeze, but from something deeper, like an invisible clock has begun to whisper. That clock tucked inside the cells of every leaf, listens not to hours or minutes, but to sunlight, specifically how much of it arrives each day. And as the days begin to shrink, as the sun slips lower and lingers less, the trees take notice. Not with eyes, but with pigments. You see, deep within each leaf is a compound called chlorophyll, the one that makes it green, the one that captures sunlight and turns it into food. But chlorophyll is fragile. It takes effort to make and to keep. And when the sun begins to retreat, the tree decides it's time to stop investing in green. Bit by bit, chlorophyll fades, and as it does, other pigments, the ones that were always there, quietly waiting behind the green, begin to show themselves. Carotenoids bring the yellows, anthocyanins arrive with reds and purples, tannins offer browns. This is not a sudden change. It is a slow revelation, a quiet reveal of what was always underneath. Autumn doesn't add color, it uncovers it. But how does the tree know when it's time? It reads light, not like a watch, but like a mood. Light, after all, has a quality beyond time. It has length, not just duration, but wavelength. The red tones of sunrise and sunset grow longer in autumn. The forest notices. Inside the cells of the leaf, there are receptors that respond to this quality of light. They act like gatekeepers, signaling when the balance has tipped, when summer light has grown too lean. One key signal is the hormone called abscisic acid, a chemical that rises in response to stress, like less light or colder nights. It is this molecule that tells the tree it's time to prepare, not to panic, but to begin the letting go. The leaf, still soft and beautiful, is gently cut off from the flow of nutrients at its base. A layer of cells called the abscission layer begins to form. Slowly, it severs the connection between leaf and branch, and though the leaf may still flutter for days or weeks, its time is tenderly closing. It is not abandonment, it is grace. The tree is conserving energy, drawing inward, entering the first pages of a long, slow sleep. As you wander deeper into the changing woods, you might wonder, why do the colors matter? If the green is gone, why not just let the leaves fade to brown and fall? But here, science offers a beautiful idea. Color is not just a byproduct, it might be a message. Some scientists believe that the bright reds of autumn serve as a warning to insects. Don't lay eggs here, the scarlet says. This tree is healthy and strong and ready for winter. Others suggest the pigments are like sunscreen, shielding the leaves from light stress in their final days. And some think the reds are simply what happen when sugar gets trapped in a leaf as it dies. The sweetness of summer crystallized in crimson. Whatever the reason, the effect is the same. A painting made of decay, a celebration of the ending, a visual whisper to the forest and to you. Beauty lives even in retreat. The most vibrant colors do not arrive at the start, but at the close, like the final chord of a song or the last rays of evening light. And still, the forest is not done. As more leaves change and fall, something remarkable happens beneath your feet. The soil, blanketed in this quiet confetti, begins to stir with new life. Fungi stretch their threads, microbes awaken. The fallen leaves, dry and brittle, become the beginning of nourishment. It's a cycle, of course, but more than that, it's a rhythm, a choreography of change. Each tree has its own tempo. Some flame early, others late. Some keep their green until frost nudges them. Others blaze at the first hint of coolness. And yet together they move as one great organism, the forest. writing a song in colors that lasts only a few weeks, and yet is remembered all year. You walk in this melody. You listen with your eyes. The turning of the leaves is not just a change of state. It is a quiet science of listening, of adaptation, of wisdom passed through cells and seasons. And you too are part of this turning as a witness, as a being moved by unseen clocks, as something that also lets go and also waits. When you hold a leaf in your hand, one that has turned, fallen, perhaps curled at the edges, you are holding a record of light, a memory of sun, a story told in green, then retold in gold. That leaf once caught photons, turned them into sugars, fed a branch, helped a blossom, and now it returns to the ground to become food for another cycle. There is something sacred in that, in the way no moment is wasted, in the way change is not destruction, but preparation. The forest is not dying, it is deepening, retreating into its roots, thickening its bark, storing its breath for the long cold. And in doing so, it reminds you of something gentle but profound. That transformation is not always loud. Sometimes it is the quietest shift of all. The slow fade of green to fire, the patient dance of light and pigment, the embrace of sleep disguised as brilliance. The air grows cooler now. The path crunches a little more underfoot. And still, the forest glows. You exhale, and your breath curls like mist into the evening air. You watch it fade, just as the light does, just as the leaves do, and yet nothing feels like loss. Everything is part of something larger, something that turns and returns again. Autumn is not the end of the story. It is the forest speaking in color before the hush. And you, quiet, listening, walking beneath the golden sigh of trees, you carry the color forward inside you. The next time you feel the crispness of air or the soft brush of a falling leaf on your shoulder, you may wonder, what else listens to light so closely? What other living things mark the length of day with such quiet wisdom, shaping not only their rhythms, but their very structure in response? Somewhere far from the forest, even your own body is listening to light. Chapter 16. The Flower That Counts the Stars. Somewhere deep in the stillness of night, a bud begins to stir. It does not rustle, it does not rush. It opens slowly, silently, as if in reverence to the sky above. You are not watching a performance. You are witnessing a ceremony. A flower that has waited not for sunlight, but for stars. And not just any stars. The right season, the right moon, the right whisper of temperature, carried on a breeze only it can hear. There are plants in this world that do not measure their lives in days, but in moons, in cycles of darkness and silver light. They are not interested in haste or repetition. Their clocks move by dreams, not deadlines. They bloom only once a year, or once in decades, or once and never again, and always, always at night. In this quiet chapter, you will follow them, through tropics and tundra, through centuries of slowness and sudden beauty. You will discover the strange and wondrous clocks that live within petals, timekeepers that do not tick, but open. There is a place, humid and still, where the queen of the night stirs. She lives in deserts and gardens, in corners of the world where the heat slips away after sundown. Her name in science is Epiphyllum oxypetalum, but names matter less to her than the rhythm of time. She blooms only at night, one night, and only once in the year. All through the long months, she waits, a tall, sleepy cactus, green and folded, patient in the shadows. Then, one evening, something ancient within her feels the air shift. The warmth of the day cools just enough. The moon, perhaps, is near full. She begins to swell. A tight green bud unfolds into a blossom of pure white, wide and luminous, soft as silk, and scented like a forgotten dream. And by dawn, she is gone, closed forever, wilted as if she never was. But you know better. You were there. You saw time open in a petal. You smelled a clock that ticks only in fragrance. Her bloom was not brief. It was precise.
Somewhere else, far away on a cold mountain top, the Brahma Kamal waits. Tucked high in the Himalayas, among stone and sky, this flower grows in a place where time feels slow already. But she makes it slower. She blooms only at night, in the chill, and only for a few hours, like a prayer whispered and released into thin air. She too listens for the signals, moonlight, temperature, the silent symphony of timing that only she understands. It is not just the light that guides her, but the dark. She does not need the sun to feel alive. Instead, she reads the stars. Scientists call this sensitivity to day-length photoperiodism, a plant's ability to measure how long the night is. Some bloom when nights are short. Others, like the Queen of the Night and the Brahma Kamal, bloom when the nights are long enough to cradle them. This is their calendar, not pages or months, but nightfall and the long hush that follows.
Inside each flower, there is no ticking gear, no watch. And yet, the accuracy is astonishing. It is the work of a plant's internal circadian rhythm, a biological clock that doesn't sleep, even when the plant appears to. This rhythm tells it when to grow, when to rest, when to open. It is shaped by light, by shadow, by the gentle signals of the Earth's spin. But even beyond the daily rhythm is a deeper one, a circannual clock, tuned to the seasons themselves. This is how plants know it's been a year, or a decade, or a lifetime. Some flowers, like the Talinum paniculatum, can count the lunar cycles. Others seem to remember rainfall patterns, blooming only after a precise number of rainy seasons. They are not guessing. They are keeping time in cells, in genes, in ancient molecules that respond not to thought, but to sensation. These are not mechanical clocks. They are soft clocks, pulsing in leaf and root, sensing without sound, remembering without mind. And then there are the legendary one-time bloomers, the Agave americana, also known as the century plant. She does not live for 100 years, but she waits for decades. And then, one summer evening, she rises. A tall stalk shoots upward like a green flame, towering above her spiny leaves. From this stalk, blossoms unfurl, small, yellow, clustered like stars in a midnight sky. She pours all her energy into this act, every drop, every sugar stored in her thick leaves. She does not bloom twice. When the flowers fall, so does she. And yet her seeds remain, tiny echoes of time counted and released. Her bloom is not a finale. It is an offering. You may wonder, how can something without eyes or a brain know so much? Know when the moon is full, when the season turns, when one single night is the only one that matters. And yet, they do. Scientists believe plants detect these patterns through hormones like florigen, a substance that travels through a plant's phloem, the same tissue that carries sugar. Florigen is like a whisper between leaves, telling the flower, now, it's time. And that whisper does not arrive alone. It comes after long listening, to cold nights, to lengthening darkness, to the gentle arithmetic of days. And when enough signs have passed, when the equation adds up, the bloom begins. There is a strange kind of wisdom in such restraint, in waiting years to bloom, in opening only at night, in trusting that the stars, too, are part of the design. You lie back in a warm clearing, looking up. Somewhere nearby, a flower is blooming, unseen by most, untouched by light, and perfect. It does not ask for attention. It does not need applause. Its beauty is not diminished by its secrecy. You feel something in your own chest respond to that. The idea that time does not need to be loud to be profound. That something can take years to unfold and still be right on time. You, too, carry clocks within you. Not the ones you check, but the ones you feel. The sense that something is ready or not. The pull toward beginning or the ache to pause. These are not flaws. They are flowers, waiting for their night to bloom. And so, you begin to wonder what it might feel like to let your own rhythms slow, to bloom not on schedule but by sensation, to be like the ghost orchid of the Everglades, hiding high in trees and blooming only when the humidity hums just right, or like the night-blooming cereus, unrolling its lace at midnight, alone and perfect in its solitude. You think of how many things in life try to rush you, but nature never does. Nature waits, and when the moment is right, it opens, no sooner, no later. The sky is deeper now. You imagine it full of timekeepers, not just stars and planets, but petals and buds and roots that listen to them. The universe, perhaps, is full of blooming, not just in light, but in the dark, not just at noon, but at midnight. And beneath it all, the plants wait, counting the stars, holding their breath, preparing for their one true moment. Because sometimes the most important things in life happen in the quiet, in the dark, in the spaces between days. And somewhere inside you, something is still listening to the moon. Chapter 17. The Plant That Forgets Time. You wake in the middle of the night, unsure why. The air is still, the world around you hushed, and yet something feels off, as if the rhythm that usually cradles you has faltered, as if the silence is not peace, but disorientation. Now imagine a plant feeling that same soft unraveling, a flower that opens before the pollinators arrive, a leaf that begins to fall too early or never at all. You might not see it, but deep within its cells, something ancient has slipped. Its inner clock, that quiet keeper of seasons and light, no longer knows what time it is. And when a plant forgets time, it does not simply stumble, it suffers. This chapter invites you into that silent confusion, into the world of plants that lose their rhythm. You will explore what disrupts these natural clocks, what light and pollution and even kindness sometimes steal, and how those missteps reveal something hauntingly familiar about your own need to be in rhythm, with the sun, with the dark, with the breath of the earth. You begin with a city sidewalk where a streetlight hums above a lonely sapling. The tree stands small but hopeful, planted in concrete, its roots restricted but trying. Around it, buildings glow long into the night. Lamps spill golden halos onto leaves that should be sleeping. And the tree, like all others, relies on signals to tell it when to grow, when to rest, when to drop its leaves or send out buds. One of the most important of those signals is darkness. True, uninterrupted night, but in this place there is no full darkness. The light from above confuses the tree's receptors. The chlorophyll lingers. The leaves stay green long after they should have yellowed and fallen. And when frost arrives unexpectedly, stillness finally forced upon the tree, it is not prepared. The leaves are caught unaware. They blacken with the cold. The tree endures, but it does not thrive. This disruption is known as photopollution, and it doesn't just affect street trees. Even deep in the countryside, the gentle veil of night is pierced by distant bulbs, and with it, the timing of life begins to drift. Within every plant, there lives a kind of timekeeper, the circadian rhythm you've come to know, guided by genes and proteins that rise and fall like the tide. But this rhythm isn't rigid. It must be set and reset each day by cues from the world. Light is the most powerful of these cues. When the dawn comes, a surge of molecules says, "Begin." When night falls, others whisper, "Pause, repair, rest." But when light becomes constant or arrives too early, or shines too brightly at midnight, the plant's clock loses its alignment. It's like living in a home where the curtains are never drawn and the sunrise happens twice a day. The inner cycles begin to lose their shape. The plant may grow at the wrong time. It may fail to bloom. It may waste energy preparing for pollinators who never come, or sending seeds into a season that cannot support them. Time is no longer a gentle guide. It becomes a ghost, circling without form. This disorientation doesn't always come from light. Sometimes it begins from within, through genetic changes, mutations that twist the gears of the plant's clock. In carefully controlled labs, scientists have studied these distortions. They've created plants with no functioning internal rhythm and watched as those plants became aimless. Leaves fluttered open at odd hours. Flowers bloomed too soon or too late. The plants could not synchronize with the rising sun, and yet, what's most fascinating is how some managed to adjust. They leaned harder on external cues, warmth, humidity, even touch, as if, when the internal compass failed, they still reached for something to orient them. This reaching is not random. It is a kind of hope, a biological longing for pattern, for something in the chaos to anchor to. And maybe you feel this too, in the ways your own life craves routine, in how easily your mood is swayed when sleep is broken, when you miss a sunrise or skip a season. Consider the phenomenon of vernalization, a plant's ability to remember winter. Some species will only flower if they've been through a stretch of cold. It's how they avoid blooming in autumn's warmth, only to be destroyed by frost. They count the chill. They mark the months of quiet, storing that memory like a soft password. But when winters become shorter, warmer, or more irregular, that memory fails. A flower may rise in January instead of May. A bud may open in a spring that never truly arrives. And so, the world of plants begins to misalign with the world around them. Pollinators miss their meal. Seeds arrive too soon. And slowly, the harmony between timing and survival begins to fade.
You think of the cherry blossoms in Tokyo, how they have bloomed earlier each year. For centuries, people have recorded their flowering, celebrating the moment of full bloom as a sacred turning point. But now, the dates drift sooner and sooner. This is not a soft adjustment. It is the shifting of an entire ecological symphony. Insects, birds, even the soil microbes, all attune to this floral signal. And when it sounds too early, the orchestra loses its place. One instrument off key becomes 100, and the forest forgets its song. Yet even in this dissonance there are lessons. Not every disruption is permanent. In experiments, when artificial light was removed, plants slowly regained their rhythm. It took time, but the clock began to realign. This resilience is gentle, but powerful. It reminds you that time, when respected, is forgiving. The forest can remember. The plant can return to its rhythm, if the world gives it space to listen again, and so can you. You begin to see this forgetting not as failure, but as a reminder. That timing is not just a schedule, but a relationship between you and the sun, between roots and moonlight, between breath and silence. When you eat in rhythm with the seasons, when you rise with the light, when you let night be dark, you're honouring something ancient in yourself. You're tuning your body's clock to the same rhythm that tells a seed when to sprout. Perhaps this is why time feels different in a garden, why walking among plants seems to quiet your thoughts. You're stepping into a place where clocks are not measured in seconds, but in bloom and breeze, in scent and shade. And when you disrupt that place, and with noise, with the lights, with speed, you feel it. Not all at once, but like a low hum of unease. Plants feel it too. The ones that forget time do not scream. They simply fade, a little early, or never arrive at all. But when they are given the chance to remember, when darkness returns, when seasons are allowed to stretch, they respond. The rhythm finds them again. Buds align with bees, leaves fall when they're ready, and life, quiet and unhurried, resumes its gentle pulse. So tonight, as the room darkens and your eyes grow heavy, think of the saplings beneath the streetlights. Think of the flowers waiting for a darkness they can no longer find. And ask yourself, what kind of light do I live under? What kind of rhythm guides me? And if my inner clock has drifted, how gently can I bring it back? Because somewhere, just beyond the confusion, a rhythm is waiting to be heard again. Chapter 18. You're a garden too. Close your eyes. Let the day fall away like petals drifting to the ground. In the hush that follows, feel the space within you begin to soften. You're not a machine winding down, but something deeper. A garden returning to its own dark soil. Your breath, slow and quiet, is the wind through unseen branches. Your heartbeat is the root's pulse beneath the surface. And just like the forests you've wandered through, the blooming night flowers, the turning leaves, you too are shaped by rhythms, not one, but many, moving quietly beneath the surface of your awareness. You're not separate from the Earth's timing. You're its echo, its mirror, its breath in another form. Within your body, hidden in every cell, lives a clock, not one made of gears or numbers, but of light and dark, of chemical whispers that rise and fall in sacred tempo. This is your circadian rhythm, your 24-hour song. And whether you know it or not, you're always listening to it, even in sleep, even now. This rhythm guides your waking and your sleeping, your hunger and your healing, your mood, your temperature, your dreams. At dawn, your body stirs as light touches your eyes. Not just your mind awakens. Your cells, your hormones, your blood begin to move to the sun's music. And as night approaches, something ancient within you slows. Melatonin rises like dew. Your organs begin to rest. The soil of your being grows still again. You're a garden, and every system within you, your digestion, your immune defense, your memory, blooms best when you honor the cycle. When you rise with the morning and allow the night to be dark. When meals are shared in daylight and screens are dimmed as the stars appear. Like leaves following the sun, your energy flows more easily when you move in rhythm with the sky. And just like a plant left under harsh lamps, your body too can lose its way when it's flooded with false light, and it is rushed when the seasons are ignored. Sleep becomes shallow, thoughts tangle, the clock begins to forget what hour it is, but you can return, always, because the rhythm never leaves, it only waits, like spring, like silence. Think now of how you felt in moments of deep rest, after time spent outside, after a full night of sleep, after a slow morning untouched by urgency. Your body remembers. It doesn't need to be taught how to align. It just needs space. A garden, after all, doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be tended, watered gently, given the right light, the right stillness, the right trust. So often we speak of growth as effort, of healing as hard work. But the plants show us another way, that much of what blooms does so in surrender. A seed does not force itself open. It waits. And then, when the warmth comes, it softens. You too are allowed to soften, to rest without guilt, to bloom in quiet. Inside your brain, there is a place called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, nestled near your eyes, a tiny cluster of cells that acts as your master timekeeper. It receives signals from light and sets the pace for the rest of your body. But even your liver, your heart, your skin, they all have clocks of their own. It's a symphony, this body of yours, each organ and instrument playing its part in time. But harmony only comes when the conductor, light, rest, rhythm, is honoured. Disrupt the conductor and the music becomes noise. But tend to it, gently and consistently, and the body begins to sing again. Your microbiome, the garden of trillions of tiny beings living inside you, also follows the rhythm. Certain microbes rise in daylight, helping you break down food and create energy. Others bloom at night, helping you repair, cleanse, heal. They too are part of your ecosystem, and just like soil, their health shapes the health of everything above. What you feed them, how you rest, how you breathe, it all becomes part of the song. You are never alone in your rhythms. Even your cells are listening. And there is more. Your heart beats in rhythm. Your breath, when slow and mindful, brings you back into coherence. The body's quiet harmony between systems. Science has found that even your emotional state aligns with physical rhythm. When you feel safe, calm, grounded, your heart rate becomes more even. Your hormones settle. Your digestion flows. Your immune system strengthens. Peace is not just a feeling. It is a physiological state, a garden state. And when you live in that state, even for moments, your body thanks you by blooming from the inside. But sometimes, just like the forest, you lose your rhythm. A night of poor sleep, a week of stress, a season of misalignment, and suddenly the garden within begins to wilt. You might feel foggy, unsettled, out of sync. That's okay. Even the moon wavers. Even the most ancient trees have off-seasons. What matters is not perfection, it's return. You return with a breath, a pause, a walk outside at dawn, a cup of tea in silence, a night without screens, a morning without rush. These are the seeds, and each one you plant helps bring the rhythm back. You're not meant to rush through life. You're meant to root in it. Like a tree that grows rings with each passing year, you carry the seasons within you, moments of growth, of letting go, of dormancy, of awakening. All of it is holy. All of it is part of your blooming. The flowers taught you this. The forests, the moonlit cactus, the leaf that fell just in time. They did not hurry. They did not force. They moved with the deep intelligence of time, and so can you. Tonight, as your breath slows, let your mind become quiet soil. Let your thoughts be leaves falling into soft rest. You do not need to fix anything. You do not need to do more. Just breathe. Just be. The garden within you knows the way. It remembers the rhythm, even if you don't. And as you surrender to this moment, you become part of something older than sleep. A turning, a returning, a belonging. Your bones, your skin, your lungs, all of it listens to the light. All of it waits for the darkness to come. And in that darkness, healing happens. Growth, unseen. 1,000 clocks turning softly together. So rest now, not as an escape, but as a reunion. You are the garden, the root, the bloom, the rhythm, the breath. And even as you sleep, the light will come again.